So guys, with the upcoming Moments of Valor video that will probably come, the bundles and everything, it didn't come out yet while I'm doing this video, but it might very soon, right? With the leaks and stuff, the data mines and stuff. I decided to do a video about 5 vehicles, Spanish vehicles that need to be added to the game. I'm talking about vehicles for Italy, of course, or to a tech tree, because if you actually research a bit, you will see that there are plenty of vehicles for the Spanish that could be their own tech tree if they are added together with other nations. For example, they could be added with Portugal and maybe other nations. I mean, Morocco's, maybe there it's geographically close there, right? Or even American countries, like, for example, even Brazil or something, right? So, yeah, but it doesn't matter. Here are 5 vehicles that are interesting enough for us to actually get, and I'm gonna try to avoid any type of copy-paste over here. I'm trying to get vehicles that are a little bit different on the very least, okay? So we start off with what could actually be the best M48 in the game. Yeah, it is just an M48, but the Spanish had the M48A5 with some upgrades. I'm talking about the E2 upgrade, but also the E3 prototype would be amazing. So all of them, in a general sense, will have the 105mm, okay, upgraded engine, and of course an upgraded fire control system. But the thing is, the E3 had 2 things that I think would be very interesting. It would make it be the best M48 in the game, or the most modernized M48 in the game, which is stabilization and a thermal system. Yes, stabilization would help a lot in the 8.3 plus kind of situation. And of course, the thermal systems, right? Of course, we do have the M48 Super in the German tech tree, which has these 2 modifications, right? So it would be kind of on par with that. Maybe a little bit less armor because that thing has extra armor, right? But it would be very similar to it with some different things here and there, right? So it would be close to the M48 of Super on being the best M48 in the game. But it would be very cool. And yeah, for Italy, it would already be an interesting vehicle. And also, if it's their own tech tree, which I doubt that it would ever be, but if they ever add it, it would be an interesting vehicle for that as well. But imagine for Italy, something like that, it would be very cool. The second one is another tank, which is the M47E2. Yes, they also had the M47 upgraded. The E2 model of the M47 would have the main thing being 2 upgrades. The first one is an engine upgrade that apparently, if I'm not mistaken, is coming from the M60, or at least a transmission. So it's a better engine, overall better mobility, etc. And also, it is using the 105mm. So the 105, of course, it is already something that we technically have with the Italians, right? We already have an M47 that it's a premium, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that, that it's added to the Italians. But then we would have a proper, like, Spanish version, right? I think it would be very cool. The M47 with the 105 can be a very deadly vehicle just because of the BR that it has, right? So it would be very cool to see. I don't think it has anything too different, but, you know, the 105 and an M47 is something that it can be very, very cool to see, okay? Then we go for some aircraft. We start off with an aircraft that I think is gonna be very similar to one in the game, but it is also pretty interesting. The F-18A. So yeah, the Hornet was used by the Spanish. It is used by the Spanish, and of course, it is the A model. But the Plus model, they upgraded this model. Of course, we can have 2 variants, technically, an older and a newer, but the Plus one would be the one that I would bring for Italy, right? To have something different for Italy there, right? I know it's kind of a reach to have a Spanish F-18 in the Italian tech tree, but it would be very cool, especially because it wouldn't be on par with the C-late models, you know, it would be a little bit worse. It is more closer to the Hug model, you know, maybe a little bit worse, maybe a little bit better in certain areas here and there, but very close to the AF-A18A late of the British, right, tech tree, which is the Australian one, right? But yeah, for Italy, right? So that would be very interesting as well. Nothing else to talk about here. It is just a modernization on the this F-18, right? If I'm not mistaken, they upgraded the radar, they upgraded everything. right? So it would be a very, very modern version of the F-18, but with the older fuselage of the A, right? So the older engines, everything with that, okay? Another one would be the Mirage F1. The Spanish used many variants of the Mirage F1. The main one was initially the CE model, right? An exported model of the C. Then they used the E model, which is a model that it's, I mean, the EE, right? Which is for Spain specifically, but the Mirage F1E would be an all-weather multi-role fighter, but also a ground attack, so it would be kind of a little bit more broader kind of idea of what it could actually do. But then the version that I really wanted to see is the F1M. So the F1M upgrade actually got into the Spanish Air Force, right? So they basically upgraded the CE and EE models to the M, and that one would have a better radar, better, the cockpit would be, modernized, and it would have some different weapons, especially in the air-to-ground role. But in the air-to-air as well, the Spanish one could actually take AIM-9s and stuff, so it would be a very different F1 on the regards of having a new radar, having a different cockpit, and having new weapons, especially, again, for air-to-ground, but also in the addition of the AIM-9s, right? So it would be a very interesting Mirage F1 to have, and imagine having a Mirage F1 like this for Italy would be kind of different. So very cool in my opinion, right? Again, can be added as well for the main tech tree of Spain if they ever want to add something like that, but let's be honest, I don't think we will see that anytime soon, but it would still be very, very cool. And the last one, and probably one of the most interesting ones, would be the Hispano HA200. Yes, this would be a domestically designed Spanish aircraft. It's nothing too crazy, and it would be probably a very low BR for a jet, but it is a jet that was made in the 60s by them. The first flight was actually in 1955. It is an aircraft that is kind of slow, 700 kilometers per hour, more or less, and 16, 17 meters per second of a climb. The engines are pretty weak, but it is a very light vehicle, like 2 tons or something empty. And it has 2 or more pylons, right? So it can take like bomb, rockets, stuff like that. Even some people say that it can carry some gun pods. So yeah, it probably can. But mainly bombs and rockets and stuff like that. It is more of a trainer, of course, but it still would be a very interesting vehicle. Why is that? Because it is a Spanish domestically designed aircraft, right? So yeah, it has 2 engines in a similar-ish design philosophy from the MiG-9, kind of. The way that it looks and stuff. It is very different, of course, but the way that the engines are kind of put it in the aircraft, right? So 2 engines with 1 big intake on the nose, and then 2, I mean, the MiG-9 is kind of 2, but still, that intake on the nose, and then the engine's kind of going downwards a little bit, producing the thrust. So very cool aircraft. It looks very good on the terms of turning capability. It would probably be very similar to something like the Strike Master, okay? So like a 6-point-something jet, which is a jet that will see a lot of props every single match. But I think it's still very cool just because it is a different aircraft, okay? So in my opinion, it should be added just because it's a Spanish on domestic design, and it would be very cool. Okay, guys? So I see you guys on the next one. These are the 5 ones. There are so many other ones. There are Leopards and other vehicles that can be added, but these are the 5 ones that I would add. There are so many others. So like I said, guys, this is a country that has potential of being, on the very least, like full-on sub-3, I mean, it probably has more options than the Thai, if I'm not mistaken. So, of course, a lot of copy-paste, but mainly, just like Israel or something like that, it would have a lot of differences between the original vehicles from the original countries, right? So, they have their own domestic variants and stuff, which is pretty cool, okay? So, I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Thank you all the patrons and members, and bye, guys. See you in the next one.